Good afternoon, everybody. Anthony Aniano here from RotoBaller Radio and RotoBaller.com with an early look at the waiver wire for Week 6 of your fantasy football season. Full disclosure, recording Sunday evening before the Sunday and Monday night games, so still 4 teams coming up in action. So injuries can still occur, players can emerge, what have you. So check the comments section. I'll let you know if there's any major changes, if anybody else should be added to this list. As always, we use Yahoo roster percentages as our talking points for these videos, so anybody available in 50% or more of Yahoo leagues will be mentioned. Keep in mind, Week 6, ladies and gentlemen, 4 teams are on a bye. Your Kansas City Chiefs, your Los Angeles Rams, Miami Dolphins, and Minnesota Vikings all getting Week 6 off. You also had injuries in Week 5. Aaron Rodgers dealt with an ankle but did come back. Anthony Richardson was already out. Running backs Aaron Jones and Devon Achane both missed. Both were injured during the game in Week 5. They now have the bye to get healthier. Nico Collins, probably the biggest injury with that hamstring. Xavier Legette gets injured for Carolina as well. So let's start at the quarterback position. If you're worried about Rodgers, you're worried about Anthony Richardson, maybe you're losing Mahomes, Stafford, or Sam Darnold, of all people, for this bye week. 2 players to be mentioned, and I can't believe who they are. But the first one is Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. And listen, if you've heard me on SiriusXM, you know I am not in on Daniel Jones. I keep waiting for him to get benched, but every time I say he's going to get benched, he produces once again, and he produced on Sunday out west in Seattle, getting a victory over the Seahawks. He's only 9% rostered. He's available in 91% of leagues. And for him to go throw for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns without his number 1 wide receiver, that says something for me. So the fact that he utilized Wan'Dale Robinson, the fact that he utilized Darius Slayton, that he utilized the running game, he didn't have Devin Singletary running the ball either. This was a very impressive performance for Daniel Jones. 11 for 38 running, like I mentioned, the 2 touchdown passes. He's now got 3 games this season with 2 touchdowns. He's got 250 yards or more in his last 2 starts. He finished this week in a 6-point per passing touchdown format with 26.1 fantasy points and goes against the Cincinnati Bengals next week. My number 2 ad is dependent on Anthony Richardson. If Anthony Richardson is out again next week, then Joe Flacco is viable. He's 7% rostered. He makes Josh Downs and Michael Pittman significantly better. Let's just call it what it is. 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, he lost a fumble, but 37.6 fantasy points for Joe Flacco. Right now, that Colts offense plays better with him under center than Anthony Richardson. It's just fact. If you have Josh Downs, if you have Michael Pittman, you're thrilled when Joe Flacco's under center. Next week, on the road against the Tennessee Titans. So those are my top 2 quarterback ads, one being caveated with the fact that Richardson has to remain out. At the running back position, the clear number 1 running back to add, and probably the number 1 ad regardless of position this week, is Jacksonville Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby, who is eventually going to take over that job if he keeps running like this from Travis Etienne. 22% rostered, makes him 78% available. 13 carries, 101 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns this week, just under 26 fantasy points, had a 28-yard reception, compared to Travis Etienne, who had 6 carries for 17 yards. Bigsby at Chicago next week. He is at least even with Etienne in the mix. Tank Bigsby goes into your lineup as a flex option going forward. Up number 2, Giants running back Tyrone Tracy is worth an ad as well, especially if Devin Singletary is out. He looked great, better than Singletary has really all year running the ball. 18 carries for 129 yards, had a 1-yard reception as well, finishing with 14 fantasy points did the Giant rookie. Goes up against Cincinnati next week. Tyrone Tracy is rostered in only 23% of formats. Now, my other 2 running backs are both on a bye. But if injuries linger for Aaron Jones and Devon Achane, then you're going to want Ty Chandler of the Minnesota Vikings, who came in to replace Aaron Jones. 14 of 30, had 2 catches for 9 yards. Not big numbers, but he would take over if Aaron Jones is out, so be mindful of that. It's just a 2-week thing. So if you have Jones, you may want to get Chandler now. And then if Jones is active, you can move on from Chandler. Same thing in Miami. Now, Mostert looked pretty good returning, but we know Miami wants to utilize 2 running backs throughout the game. So if Achane is out, that second running back is rookie Jalen Wright. 8% rostered. He's available in 92% of leagues. He had 13 carries for 86 yards to go along with Mostert's 80 yards. So Miami wanted to run the ball. It almost sometimes doesn't matter when you're running against a bad defense, you could run the ball, you run the ball, and that's what Jalen Wright did. Finished with 8.6 fantasy points. They are also on that bye, but if Achane is out, Jalen Wright is a nice player to just slide in to Achane's role. Now, at the wide receiver position, big injury there. The biggest injury probably of the week, Nico Collins and that hamstring. Now, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell will step up. Both of them are over 50% rostered. So where do we look? Well, I was surprised to see Darnell Mooney available in more than half of Yahoo leagues. He's rostered in 47% of leagues. He's been fantastic for Atlanta. And if Kirk Cousins is going to keep throwing for 500 yards, Drake London's not getting all of it. This past Thursday night, Darnell Mooney, 9 catches on 16 targets, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, 31.5 fantasy points. He's got 15 or more fantasy points in 3 of 5 games this season, does Darnell Mooney. They are on the road, but a great matchup at the Carolina Panthers. Number 2, I mentioned them earlier, Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. Somebody had asked me on X, am I starting Downs? And my answer was, if Flacco's playing, yes, you're starting Josh Downs. He's becoming Joe Flacco's favorite target. 9 catches, 69 yards on 12 targets. He's 40% rostered on Yahoo, available in 60% of leagues. 15.9 fantasy points. He's got 38 fantasy points in his last 2 games with 21 targets over that span. Next week, the Colts are at the Tennessee Titans. And my third wide receiver to keep an eye on a bye next week, but Jordan Whittington of the Los Angeles Rams has been effective. He's available in 85% of Yahoo leagues. 10 targets. When you hit 10 targets, you got to pay attention to those players. 7 receptions, 89 yards, 28 fantasy points over his last 2 games. 13 catches with 8 on 18 targets in that span. 15.9 fantasy points. Now again, the bye week in week 6, so be mindful of that. And week 7, Cooper Kupp is scheduled to return, so who knows what you get out of Whittington, but Puka Nacua will remain out, and the Rams are looking for somebody to run opposite Cooper Kupp. And finally, if you need a tight end, maybe you lost Travis Kelce. This was somebody I recommended last week as well, and he paid off in a PPR format, but that's Jets tight end Tyler Conklin, who's getting more and more involved in the offense each and every week with Aaron Rodgers. He's 30% rostered, available in 70% of Yahoo formats. This week, targeted 9 times, 6 catches, 55 yards, 11.5 fantasy points. He's got 23 targets and 15 receptions in his last 3 games. The Jets next week in a must-win game, in my opinion, against the Buffalo Bills. So to recap, my top ads for week 6 of the fantasy football season: quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Joe Flacco; running backs, Tank Bigsby, Tyrone Tracy, Ty Chandler, and Jalen Wright. At the wide receiver position, Darnell Mooney, Josh Downs, and Jordan Whittington. And my tight end, Tyler Conklin from the New York Jets. Folks, don't forget, head over to RotoBaller.com right now. Sign up for our NFL Premium Pass and save at checkout using the promotional code ACES. Make sure you like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel and download the RotoBaller app. It's completely free. 6 sports, all available right there. News, updated news constantly. All DFS, sports betting, whatever it is you're looking for, RotoBaller.com has you covered. Give me a follow on X at @Aniano Fantasy, and we will see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.